everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Cup Duet Reviews, brought to you by Cup of Hemlock Theatre. I am your host, Mackenzie, and I'm joined today by my co-artistic producer over there, the man who wears a plaid better than any Scotsman I know. It is the wonderful Ryan Borochovitz. Hello, Ryan.
Hi, Mackers, if you will.
Yes,
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing excellent, Lottie. I'm doing excellent.
Nice. So you're going to do the accent the whole time?
No, I'll drop it.
You'll drop it. Yeah, leave it to the experts.
Yes, leave it. Yes, exactly. But we are doing a Mac-related play tonight, or for this episode, and it is from Eldritch Theatre. Once again, Ryan and I are back at Eldritch Theatre again. He and I seem to have kind of cornered the cup market on Eldritch Productions at this point. Sorry, Jill.
Yeah, she can see one eventually.
Yeah, exactly. She'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
But tonight, Eldritch did a very interesting piece that, you would think would fit well at Halloween, but they're doing it in February, the month of love. But mind you, some people have argued that the titular couple of this particular play are Shakespeare's best adapted love couple. One could argue. But we are doing Macbeth, A Tale Told by an Idiot, as conceived and performed by Eric Woolfe and directed by Dylan Trowbridge. Yes. Now, we have done the Scottish play twice already on the Cup. We did the Stratford review as one of our earliest episodes with our wonderful Bridget Wilson coming on. And then we did the Denzel film version that was done all in black and white during the COVID times.
That was our inaugural episode of the screenplays.
That's right. Yes, it was. And now we're back at it again for another tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Yes.
Indeed.
Yes. Well, Ryan, for people who may not know the Scottish play, do you want to give your oh wait, before we do that, Ryan, what's in your cup?
You're holding your cup, I was just going to say.
I'm holding mine.
What's in yours?
The witches, they're messing.
Is that a cup I see before me?
The handle toward my hand.
Hey.
Come, let me touch you. I have the nugget. I see these still.
So, since yours is already on screen, what's in your cup?
Well, for once in a while now, it's been a while since I had this cup out, but I have the cup.
Great.
And because we are recording this late at night, we're doing a rare post-show review, because usually whenever you and I or Jill and I see a show, we always do it the day after, but tonight we're doing it hot off the theater scene. So I'm drinking a cup of Earl Grey tea to help me kind of wind down for the night. But Ryan, what about you? What's in your cup tonight?
It's nice. I'm glad you are representing the cup because I don't have my cup right now.
What?
Yes, I'm an iced coffee guy now, I guess, because I've been having iced coffees lately.
Jill's corrupted you, has she?
Yes, while she was recovering from her tonsil surgery, she introduced me to this delicious elixir. So it's probably a mistake because it's quite late at night, but it's delicious, and that's what I feel like having right now.
Well, Ryan, the extra caffeine will give you ample energy to watch season 2 of the sadly canceled Schmigadoon.
Okay, is that what I'm doing right after we record this?
That, or I'm finishing The Crown, one of the two.
Oh my god, so much pressure to binge watch TV.
Well, it's a perfect way to keep you up at night.
Yeah.
There we go. Yes, but there we go. But Ryan, for people who have not seen the Scottish play or have never read it in school or somehow been living under a witch's rock for the last 1,000 years or so, what is Macbeth about?
Is that even a necessary thing to... I don't know, I'm genuinely asking, because in my view, you either are very familiar with the show already, and then you still get to enjoy this very interesting twist on it.
Yeah.
Or if you've somehow managed to live your whole life to this point and not encounter it, as I imagine some people did, if you just didn't happen to read it in high school and maybe aren't a big Shakespeare aficionado, then you have the rare treat of seeing this show and being exposed to a very interesting version of it as your first time. And maybe I don't want to rob you of that pleasure by giving you the Sparks Notes version, because I think this is a very accessible entrance point into Macbeth. But it's about a Scottish usurper king in the Middle Ages, And,
Yes.
Shakespeare wrote it as a propaganda piece to gain the favor of the new King James I, who was from
Mhm.
Scotland and comes from
Mhm.
Banquo and Leonce's line.
Well, he said he came from Banquo's line.
Yeah, whatever.
Once
But
again,
it was,
propaganda.
yes, very
Yeah.
flattering.
Yes.
Yes.
Very flattering. Yeah, very flattering. Very flattering for James the First or James the Sixth of Scotland.
Mhm.
There, who had a big affinity for witchcraft and witches.
Yes, so
So
this play was right up his alley. Shakespeare knew
yes,
what
it
he was
was.
doing.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Once again, Shakespeare was playing to the masses. Just
Yeah.
like
Well,
I mean,
to the king in this case, not quite the opposite of the masses.
true. He was playing to the king, but once again, he
Yes.
was writing
Yeah.
popular pieces that are kind of like the Marvel movies of today. It was
Mhm.
like, all right, we're gonna do one that's gonna got Doctor Strange in it because it's that time and it's
Because
that
the new
character. It's
king
like,
is a total nerd and he's from
yep,
Scotland, so this is what we're gonna. He
yeah,
also just became the patron of our company, the Kingsmen,
yep,
no longer the
yes,
Chamberlain's men. So
yep,
let's do one for
exactly,
him.
exactly. But yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yeah, the whole play's about a Scottish thane lord who gets 3 prophecies on his way home from battle. He finds out one of them is that he will potentially be king, and then he takes fate into his own hands to make it happen, and it's about the repercussions that come from that decision there.
Mhm.
So there we go. There we go.
Well,
But
that's
yeah,
the play, but
yeah.
what we saw was a very interesting version of it. I wouldn't
Well,
say
once
that
again,
this
we
is
saw a very interesting
straightforward.
adaptation of this. I mean, I was surprised how close Eric kept to
Mhm.
the piece, because I mean, you and I have now done a few Eldritch shows, and one of the things I've always enjoyed is how he starts a story, but then has like magic vignettes
Mhm.
that he kind of steps out of, where he sometimes he has audience involvement, and then he's right back into the story again. And this time it was really like he was doing just a straight Shakespeare play, but with his puppets.
Mhm. And I would
Um,
say that's similar to what he did in the very first Eldritch show. We reviewed Two
yes,
Weird Tales, because that more or
correct.
less was at least the first episode of the Two Weird Tales was
Yes,
Kafka's Metamorphosis, and that was hewing
correct.
very
Yes, where he
closely.
turned to the cockroach.
Yes, and that more or less kept the original novella as
Hmm.
the main through line of it. It was interjected with magic, but
Yeah,
not.
more magic than this had.
Yeah, this one had magic, and we will talk probably post spoiler about some of the specifics of the
Yes,
magic, because I was
yes,
quite impressed with the way he wove it into the story in
yeah,
this way.
yes.
Sort of different from similar previous shows we've seen. I think is sort of what you're
Mhm.
hinting at. But
Yes,
yeah, it
yes,
is quite a more straightforward version of the original Scottish play than I
yeah,
was expecting.
yeah. And they
And
didn't cut anything really. Like,
he cut
uh, uh,
some things,
he,
like,
he cut some small stuff, but like even the
yeah,
porter and the
yeah.
horrible Malcolm in England scene that everybody hates.
No, see, I will disagree. That is what he
Yeah,
cut. He did cut the length of that scene,
yeah,
where there's
yeah.
like
He
a
cut it
long
down.
back and
Yes,
forth between Macduff and Malcolm.
yes,
But yeah, for the most part, like, Donald Bane is gone. We
yeah,
have some puppets are representing multiple different characters. Like the
yes.
porter also became
Seton.
Satan, however you'd like to pronounce that character. Ooh,
Yeah.
Macbeth's last friend is Satan. I wonder what that
Ooh.
symbolizes. Yeah,
I still say that's a forgotten character that somebody had in one version that changed in another version, and that's where that
very,
character comes from.
very possibly. But yeah, so what are your overall appraisals of this piece beyond it just being interestingly faithful to the original?
I love it. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, this is probably my favorite Eldritch piece, and we've seen a few now, but I really enjoyed this one. This is one where like I would love to see him tour it to schools and have field trips available, because like this is a fun way to introduce Shakespeare to the masses. I mean, having dramatic puppets like Fozzie Bears falling apart, and but still bringing real pathos like into this piece. I thought it was a beautifully well done, very faithful adaptation of the source material, and I think Eric really brought a lot of humanity and the pain of Macbeth into this piece. When he gets to his tomorrow and tomorrow speech, which we'll dive more into post spoiler, but like there was real pain in that, or post murder of Duncan, you know, minor spoiler there, you know, like the fear in that moment of what does that sound like he did better, he did a way better job than what's his name, He played Magneto in
Ian
X.
McKellen?
No, the other one, Michael Fassbender.
Oh, okay, right.
Like, he did way better than Michael Fassbender did playing this role with Marion Cotillard. I actually enjoyed Eric way more than I did Michael Fassbender, who was totally stale in that film. Even though the trailers made it look like Braveheart with Shakespeare, the film was nothing like that at all. It was slow and had no agency. Eric had agency throughout the piece, while also making it very Looney Tune. Like, we're constantly reminded of like the Looney Tunes with the sound effects and the splat sounds, and just how quickly he was able to flip between that. Where, like, you know, we have the when Lady M falls from the tower, we have the splat,
yeah, slide whistle, splat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Wile E. Coyote drop during the Coyote in Roadrunner cartoons when he falls off the cliff. And then he goes right from that to giving a very passionate, very heartfelt rendition of the Tomorrow and Tomorrow monologue. It was great. Like, once again, you could tell Eric really got into these characters and this play. And, you know, I would love to see him do other ones. Like, I would love to see him do Titus Andronicus with these puppets. I think he could have a lot of fun with just the butchery and the bloodiness and just what goes on in that play. I would love to see him do his Lavinia puppet just to see what that would end up being like. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I mean, Ryan, how about you? I mean, we now see quite a few Eldritch shows. Where would this rank in your...
I'm still working out the ranking in my head because I don't know if this is my favorite Eldritch show I've seen, but I think it is objectively the best one. That doesn't mean it's my favorite. I can recognize that those are two different things.
Yeah, but I really like that cockroach.
I did like the cockroach a lot. I think that one, maybe I loved Requiem for a Gumshoe, which we talked about before.
Yes, the Halloween one we just did.
Yeah, the Doc Weathergloom's most recent show. Which, yeah, like, I think there's a lot of great stuff here, and maybe I will, like, you know, in a few days to conclude that yes, this one was my favorite.
Yeah,
but I think Toronto theater does not deserve Eric Woolfe. This man is, like, I think this is by far his most impressive performance that we've seen in any of these. And that's not to discount any of the others, but I think those ones are very much poised towards, you know, I'm doing a big comedy arch satire version of these stories, even the Two Weird Tales one, which is already like a very comical, absurd type story. Yeah. Especially, you know, the Metamorphosis, and then even the Lovecraft Mountains of Madness one was very much like even heightened to the nth degree, I guess. But this was just like a legitimately great one-man Shakespeare performance that also just had a million other, like, you know, funny flourishes, the amazing puppets that we've seen in so many of these performances before with their bloodshot eyes and the different voices he gives all of them. And the magic tricks were still woven in interesting ways. Again, we'll talk about that more post-spoiler. But, like, especially with the way he's set up here, like, behind the cauldron desk, which was very transparently made of cardboard, which is really interesting.
Yes.
On one hand, like, I want to say it evokes Spalding Gray in a little bit of ways, but, you know, whereas his whole shtick was very much about, like, removing all the artifice and being very authentic. This is just me monologuing to the audience. Like, this is all artifice all the time in the best possible way. And yet, I also want to compare it to, in a sense, an Eldritch show is like a theatrical Benihana's. And I think, like, the actual, like, setup here with that, like, desk cauldron kind of, like, presents himself as he is this master chef who will usually, in most cases, get you in on the participation here, and you have a great time. It's all about the showmanship and kind of getting a good meal out of the performance, more so than it is really about, you know, art that takes itself too seriously. And yet to see something like this, it might just be one of the best MacBeths I've seen, certainly in a long time. And to do 100%. That with cartoon sound effects and ridiculous looking puppets and exploding teddy bears and, you know, Christopher Nolan, Hans Zimmer sound cues every time the prophecy came on. Like, this was just a delight. I have a big thought that I think I want to save to post-spoiler that is not, you know, anything negative about the show at all, but it actually is maybe just a strange observation that I'm chewing on about the state of Shakespeare performance, and that I think this show brought to my attention, or maybe congealed a few different thoughts that I've been maybe subtly stewing on for a while, but really brought them into focus here. I don't think pre-spoiler is the place for that, but as we unpack more in a moment. But yes, I would encourage anybody to see it, whether you've seen Macbeth before, you've seen a million different Macbeths before. I think this is worth checking out for a variety of reasons. It's fun.
I would love Stratford to invite him to like the studio theater, just like how they did the Goblin Macbeth last season.
Yeah.
I think this would be a great thing for them to bring him out to do for like a few weeks at the studio theater in the fall. I think that'd be a great, once again, great PR for Stratford. They're getting other artists to come in, bring their work. It's Shakespeare related, you know. Stratford,
again, I think
hit Eric up.
See, I think that would be great for Stratford to do, but I kind of feel like part of the charm of this is that it is in a hole-in-a-wall venue like Red Sandcastle, and that it is like you feel like by being in these spaces that you're kind of privy to something. Secret's probably the wrong word, but like this is almost like an exclusive club that people who are in the know and people who don't are missing out on, and then you could like really rave to all your friends. I worry that like not that I think, again, this kind of goes back to the big thing I'll say in a little bit, but it's I don't think Stratford deserves this production, just like I don't think Toronto Theatre deserves it, but because he's self-producing it here with his company in Toronto, it's like within his control. I don't know. We'll get more in a moment. Is there anything pre-spoiler you want to add before we maybe put up?
I say slight trigger warning.
Okay, yeah.
That the play does open with the mutilation of an infant. So for people who are sensitive to that type of thing, whether that's, you know, for a multitude of reasons of why maybe seeing a baby cut open and gutted and then tossed aside like garbage.
To be fair, it isn't used by a prop, like, yes, but it's understandable that people with
that imagery could be triggering to someone.
That. Yes, of course.
I mean, I was fine with it. You were fine with it. I didn't see anybody in the audience overly cringing or freaking out by it like that. But like just that opening imagery, like that first I was like, ooh, how dark are we going here, Eric? Like, because we've got a lot of dangling dead babies on this stage.
And I think there's actually something in the season program, which I also have here. Okay, our show includes puppet infanticide, regicide, all-around murder, blatant use of dark magic from the Necronomicon, not to mention terrifying serial killers, witches, the undead, the dead, the damned, and basically everything to give you nightmares for a week. Well, maybe 2 weeks if we do this right. So, which like it is addressing it, but like again, part of me wonders, like, you know, is that making light of trigger warnings where people might have legitimate sensitivities and want to be made aware of these things? The fact that, you know, you maybe don't need to be warned about witches and the undead the same way you might want to be warned about infanticide. So, so I don't know. Mixed feelings.
I don't know, but as long as there is a trigger warning there, it's great. I mean, before we head into the or the spoiler section with our spoiler teddy bear, Ryan, what other Shakespeare play would you like to see Eric tackle in this format?
So that's a good question. So you said Titus Andronicus is your choice.
That's my pick.
I might need to think about that. Here's the thing. So the frame of reference that I brought to my mind watching this is a show that I think I mentioned once before on the Cup, on actually our very first episode on King Lear, because we opened that episode with what previous King Lears had you seen, and I mentioned that I saw one called Burger King Lear at the Fresh Meat Festival in Ottawa a number of years ago. I believe the name of the
sounds familiar.
The name of the artist who performed it, I believe, was Kate Smith, but I could be wrong. Apologies to the brilliant performer who made this really memorable show. But it was basically Puppet King Lear, but with hamburgers. Burger King Lear is the joke.
That's funny.
So like it was very similar to this, that she was like standing at a table and had like hamburgers with little crowns on it. But what she did different from what Eric did here is that instead of reciting the actual text of the play, it was all kind of like Charlie Brown's Parents and Teachers, like wah, 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 wah. And you know, the fool was played by a pogo dog and went like boing boing boing, and it was brilliant, and it was such a brilliant, memorable, fantastic performance. And I would say that this reminded me a lot of that and a lot of the stylistic flourishes and choices. While I'm therefore tempted to say, oh, he could do a King Lear like this, I kind of like maybe don't want him stepping on that turf because I thought that show was amazing. I guess part of me, I'm torn between, do we want him to do one of the very recognizable ones like Mackers that people will already have a lot of frame of reference for, or would it be funny if he did something, I don't know, like Cymbeline or Pericles that people are maybe less familiar with, and then just like, well, you'll see a weird
King
version
John.
of it. King John. Yeah, why not? So, I don't know. Maybe as we continue talking, I'll think of a better answer, but any one of those will do.
Actually, you know what would be a good one? I could see as like a comedy one.
Sure.
Taming of the Shrew.
Yeah, might as
because
well.
that one is now, I think, so hard to do in a live format that I think the puppet element could be your way around some of the more dicey parts of the story that, you know, people get upset about with Taming of the Shrew, rightfully so, because it is a very problematic Shakespeare play at this point.
Yeah, I could get behind that. I feel like that there's a way. Honestly, you know, take your pick from anything in the Shakespeare canon. I think this format works very well, and maybe it won't necessarily have the same blood splatters as something like this or a Titus Andronicus would, but I think, there's a lot of fun things you could do. But honestly, Mackers feels like the perfect choice, at least as
it's a good kickoff one.
And definitely in terms of theme, style, substance, it's very much within the Eldritch wheelhouse. Yeah.
100%. All right. Well, in that case, Ryan, I think our non-skinned yet eye patch wearing spoiler bear is going to be cropping up on screen now.
Spoiler Banquo Bear.
Yep. Spoiler Banquo Bear.
Fozzie Banquo.
That's what I was thinking. I kept thinking of like, this is like a dark version of Fozzie Bear.
Waka waka.
Waka waka. That's so. Yes. Okay. Post spoiler. Where do we want to start with this one, Ryan? Did you have a favorite puppet of this version?
It's got to be Macduff. Macduff puppet was so funny, and not just because this big, like, I don't even know what you call it, sort of Cookie Monster-ish, sort of.
It felt a bit like a Cookie Monster meets like almost like once again a Fozzie Bear style, or no? What's the one in a it's a Snuffleupagus? In the Muppets, that's kind of like a big cousin It with the big orange nose type thing.
Kind of. Oh no, I know which one you're thinking of. Snuffleupagus is in Sesame Street. He's the elephant that Big Bird. We could just like do a big diagnosis of all the Jim Henson characters, but
I would love that.
I know which one you're thinking of, and yes, he very much exuded that. If somebody knows who we're thinking of, put it in the comments.
Yeah, put it in the comments.
But I just, in addition to having the most hilarious Shrek-esque Scottish accent in this entire piece that's set in Scotland, yet he seems to be the only one who's from Scotland or speaks like a Scotsman. I just thought it was such a funny shaped puppet that like didn't really fit with like a lot of the vibes. But then you had like other ones like the guards that, you know, watch Duncan while he's sleeping, and the guests at the banquet who are just like these weird, poor, unfortunate souls type creatures of just like a block of
like the night guards or like blocks of
a block of foam with bloodshot eyes, basically.
Yeah.
I love those guys too, but we didn't like have enough stuff with them for, I guess, whereas I think of like a core named character, Macduff. Oh, but also I think it was Ross for the most part, but maybe he played a few different characters. The dog skeleton that had a human face. That was great. That was just fun, and they never like acknowledged that he was a dog in any way. Where unlike the one that was the crow that played, he was the porter and Seaton and maybe a few other characters. Whereas you kind of wonder like, why is this character a crow? But then Lady Macbeth has a line of the crow is horse or the raven is horse.
Yeah.
After he does like a cough and like, okay, so there's very clearly a deliberate attempt like combing through the script and thinking, okay, what kind of animal can I make this character look like? Oh, crow or raven, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, I've shouted out a bunch. What about you? What's some of your favorites?
Well, see, so my first shout out goes out to the Porter Seaton puppet, because I also love the fact that, you know, I mean, once again, we got into this back when Red Sandcastle did Merchant of Venice, but there is a lot of anti-Semitism that is baked into Shakespeare's plays because of the time period. So the fact that, you know, the bird itself was bird-like, but then also felt a bit almost like him taking a jab at how, you know, the Shakespearean characters could easily play up on stereotype looks, like, you know, give Shylock a big nose because we're playing into that stereotype where, you know, the Scotsman would have worn kilts, or, you know, like things there where it's like we're going to play into some stereotypes. So I love the fact that like we got a bird. We also got a bit of kind of some of the social commentary about that. But I thought that and just his characterizing of the bird itself was a lot of fun. So I mean that was amazing. But I think my favorite has to go to the one that's right behind me, the Lady M Norma Desmond style puppet.
Yeah,
because it's terrifying. Like, because he doesn't do a lot of realistic puppets. Like this one is as close to human as I've seen him go with like puppets. Like this one feels like he just really molded a woman's face.
Right.
Like she doesn't have the big bloodshot eyes. Like she has it's a very natural thing. And just the way the fact that, you know, he has her so he can wear her almost in front of his face and have kind of almost like that. I don't know if kabuki's the right word.
Kind of kabuki-esque, I would say.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. So like it's just like it's so beautiful. And just the way he personified this Lady M, where she's always holding up part of her veil, almost like a skirt. Like it was just so beautifully done, and it was so haunting, too. Like basically when she gets to the out damn spot monologue, and they're doing that, which is the scene here behind us. It's really well done, and once again, he really like playing both the Macbeths. He played them really human, which is what makes the Muppets so great. And also what makes this so great is the humans play human. And that's why Michael Caine is Scrooge is so great as Ebenezer Scrooge against Kermit the Frog's Bob Cratchit. And it's the same thing here where, like, you know, he's playing his Macbeth's very straight and very not caricature. And there's just a beauty in the way they moved. And when he gets to the morning of Lady M's death, and he's doing the uncover, and there's the coins over the eyes.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, the fact that the coins keep appearing, meaning like she can't get through to the afterlife because she can't pay the ferryman to get there. So she's going to be kind of stuck as this ghostly purgatorial spirit is great. Like, once again, the levels of that. And because it was a human face, you really did sympathize with him mourning the death of his wife in a really beautiful way. So, yeah.
No, agreed.
That puppet is my favorite.
Yeah, no, agreed. And it's a good one, too. And I'm glad. I figured you were going to shout her out, so I left her out there. If I could also, there's something else I want to comment on in what you said, but before I do, one last pair of puppets that I want to talk about is in the outdam spot scene, the doctor and the nurse.
Yeah.
That were, like, so just cartoonish and hilarious.
Yes.
And
full-on Muppet.
Full-on Muppet, and, like, the doctor's voice was, like, hilarious. I can't even... sort of just do it with justice.
Yeah.
But the one thing that was so amazing about that was... I don't know how he did it, but this is just a testament to his skills as a puppeteer, is he made the nurse roll her eyes at one point.
Yeah.
And yet her eyes are completely static. There's no rolling mechanic. There was just in the way he like moved her head, perfectly communicated an eye roll in an inanimate object that shouldn't be able to do that. And it's something that's so amazing about his puppeteering skills that in addition to being a full-out Shakespearean actor and playing every single role in this play, to be able to also operate these puppets in like a meaningful, mechanical way and do all the specific moments and also do magic tricks on top of it. Like, again, the skill that went into this performance, like step aside every other Shakespearean actor who, you just had to do one character in this play. Oh, I'm so impressed. Like this is next level stuff here. But the thing you were saying about the coins that I wanted to comment on, and this goes into, well, first of all, the coins, 100% what you were saying about not being able to pay the ferryman and being purgatorial, but also the way that coins were used throughout this show, because those were the coins that we saw earlier, the Thane of Glums and Thane of Cawdor.
Thane of Cawdor and King.
And like, it was interesting the way that was even set up before they came back with, charged with new symbolism, is that he, you know, Duncan had Ross bring a Macbeth the coin, like, he's now the Thane of Cawdor. And then he, as Macbeth, he pinned it on his, like, you know, army insignia, badges, whatever you call them. And it kind of, and then every time the coins were then used in a magic trick, it was always charged with symbolism about, it wasn't just that, and now we're breaking for a magic trick, as we've seen in some of these other Eldritch shows. It was always very much saying something or conveying part of the story, and because these items have been imbued with symbolism in this way, it wasn't just, and now it's gone. It's
Right.
oh, now it's gone, and what does that mean? Signifying nothing, perhaps, or like, and there was always, I'm trying to even remember like specifics about all of how all these tricks worked, but it was really.
He had that one. There was the one. Like, once again, and that was the thing that was neat about these magic tricks, is that they were very simple, but mesmerizing. Like there's the one when Macbeth goes to the witches again, and it's the cauldron scene, and they're all appearing, and and he was doing the magic balls coming out of the chalice. Like, once again, a simple concept.
Yeah.
Same thing when he puts his arm through the chopper.
Oh, the guillotine type thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how he gets. Yeah,
I still don't know how he did that one.
I say this every time we review one of these shows, but like, they're simple tricks, but I don't know how he does them. Yeah. And like, he's not making like a train disappear or anything like mind blowing, but it's still like impressive. And if you're not a magician yourself, like there is that moment of like or wonder of I don't know how he did it, and that's really cool.
Now, did you see what he drew on the cards for the Macduffs?
Yes,
because I couldn't really make it out what he drew on them.
They were like two stick people. One of them was like a classic woman's bathroom with a skirt and curly hair, and the other one was just the small, shorter version, and thus a small child.
Right.
And and then did the trick of the murderers, like tearing the cards up and
that was funny.
Yeah, it's
once again the horrifying scene in the play, having the murder of this pregnant woman and her child. But in this, with the whole concept of turning the cards inside out, it was like, oh my god.
Yeah, and it's lightening what could be very horrifying stuff.
Yes.
And without, sacrificing the pathos of it, but recognizing that, it's, suspend your disbelief, as Ben tells
exactly
Leonce at one point.
Exactly. And I mean, that was really the scene that made me go, oh, this is where he could do a good Titus, is because, what happens to Lavinia, where her hands and tongue are chopped out and she's assaulted, is just absolutely horrible. When she comes out on stage wailing after the attack, you're meant to be horrified by what has happened to her. But in Eric's hands, you could really, once again, keep the pathos, but do something different with the puppet and make it so you don't feel quite as squeamish about it. And it could still have something really interesting there. So that was the scene that really made me go, okay, interesting. I'll even say the murderer puppets with the little eyes that went over his fingers, and they had different shaped mouths based on the rest of his head. Brilliant. Like, once again, just the way they did it was so well done. And it was just once again a really well done piece. Now, you said you wanted to comment on something about Shakespeare.
This is it. Like, is there other like small things about the production itself that you want? Because this might derail us, and maybe should be the last thing we talk about.
No, I think again, I think my biggest thing is I recommend it. I thought the set was great with like his newscaster cauldron desk. I thought that was fun, and then also like the fact he hung like tartan all over the place, so you still get that Scottish vibe. Once again, it was just really well done. Like even his costume had the ruffles on it, made it look like a doublet that he was wearing on top. Was great. I mean, and just the fact that he has a light cast of his face at the end is really well done. And once again, it's that human part of the story that he has, that he's got the humanity in it in there too. So I just think, once again, run it and see this. Like, this is being my favorite Eldritch piece.
And it's like far. On the subject of that, like his face at the end, because that's interesting, because I don't even think we've addressed this yet, but the character of Macbeth himself is just Eric as Eric. Everyone else is a puppet. And it's kind of interesting that for every character who dies, there is at least two puppets, the living version and then some horribly mutilated version that we switch to after they die. So you kind of wonder, if you were familiar with the story, you're like, well, Macbeth is going to die. How are they going to stage that after you've seen
the head
several?
chop.
Yeah, the head chop. And so they had this sort of beautiful death mask and then this final image. And again, talking about some things that were cut from the script. We don't have much of Malcolm ascending the throne as the traditional play would end with, but the final that's fine. But the final image that we are left with is this disembodiment of the mask and the absent face with the sheet that he put over. And it's just an amazing, like really like potent performance image that most productions of Macbeth like just don't succeed at doing, because
I don't think
the actor goes off stage, they have a prop head and like,
that never looks realistic.
Yeah, of course not. And, it's, you can only go so far. I can only imagine
Yeah.
what it must have looked like in Shakespeare's time. Like, they're probably just like
Just
a cabbage.
Just a cabbage.
A cabbage with, like, eye holes cut into it.
Yeah.
Wilson! I don't know, but to my big point, I guess, and why I maybe eased us into this with what no other Shakespeare productions do, I was very attentive to the audience watching this. And that includes myself and yourself and, like, the other people around us, some of whom we know, most who we don't.
Yes.
But the audience reactions, I thought, were very telling of something that I guess I've been maybe subconsciously thinking about Shakespeare for a while, is that it was pretty much dead silence any time that he was being faithful to the text.
Right.
But the audience laughed or reacted audibly anytime across the board that something was added or changed. And even if it was just like a Looney Tunes sound effect or a funny thing being done with a puppet or the addition of a magic trick or what have you, the audience was very receptive to difference. And I think this is making me realize, and I still need to maybe chew on this thought or what exactly I want to draw from it, but why are we still doing straightforward Shakespeare productions, period? Like, haven't most of us seen enough of them by this point? And I get that there's always new audiences and high school kids, but like, and this is why I say, like, I kind of don't want this production to go to Stratford. Yes, I want Eric to get paid very well, and if that's what it takes to do that, then sure, like, by all means, take that contract, Eric. I won't fault you if you do. But it's, I don't know. It's just that all of us collectively in that room had so much more fun when we saw things change. That is what adaptation does. It literally adapts. It is recognizing the difference. If it was just a straightforward version, as we said, this is a more straight version of its original than most of the other Eldritch shows we've seen. But it would just be like, oh yeah, that was good. He's a talented actor and he did Shakespeare, but it's like the irreverence for the source material is a huge part of this. The things like the Porter scene, I think, was so indicative of this because it's a comic relief character in the original. And as, this was sort of a place where you'd think that, oh, in like a funny version, do we, one, even need the comic relief, but two, if anything doesn't need to be changed, it's this, because it's already funny and we're in a comedy show. And it's the thing that changed the most because, this comedy doesn't really hold up anymore. And
he called it out. He said, like, you don't get this joke anymore.
Yeah, and how many times, like, I know I certainly have, I need to co-sign this if you disagree, but how many times have we seen productions where the Porter, even more so than the Macduff-Malcolm scene, just kills the energy when it's supposed to be the thing that brings the energy back up because, this is a thing people are expecting to see in a production of Macbeth, but, like, these jokes don't land anymore. This guy isn't funny.
I'm with you. I mean, I remember, who was it? I think it was when Comfiore did Mackers in Stratford, and I think they had Tom Rooney playing the Porter.
Oh, God, I don't even remember that.
I'm pretty sure it was Tom Rooney playing the Porter in that. Anyway, some character actor. And once again, that production was a bit all over the place to begin with. So it was a very uneven production. But what I watching the Porter live, I didn't feel the energy. And, it's the same thing I feel when I watch, West Side Story and we get to One Hand, One Heart. I hate that song because it kills the momentum of your building toward the Rumble. And then you're going to stop for another freaking Maria and Tony Love ballad. You've just killed Duncan. The Macbeths are having a meltdown. There's the knocking at the door, and now we're gonna stop for a comedic monologue that never lands because unless you're the actor in the rehearsal room who studies the monologue to learn the punchlines and kind of where to put the right inflection so the audience can, I don't want to say fake their way through doing the I get it, type thing there. Like, it's one of those things where I'm like, if the Porter was cut down or cut entirely from the story and we just moved it along, I'm not opposed. So, and I think Eric took it on the right way where he went, where once again, like, I've never seen somebody just be so blatant about, this is an old Elizabethan joke, very, very, very anti-Semitic. Definitely not one we want to keep doing today, but hey, we do it anyway. And this one we're just going to skip entirely because nobody gets that one. And let's just move this story along. So I enjoyed that element, but I think you're onto something with like, why do we perform Shakespeare in a particular way?
Well,
And I think you're right. I think we have lost something that Shakespeare had in his time, which is he played to the courts and he also played to the masses. And in Shakespeare's day, people forget going to see a Shakespeare play in like Elizabethan England was like going to see the next Mission Impossible movie, the next MCU movie. It wasn't meant to be this, put on your wig and sit there and do that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoy being able to go and sit in a dark theater and enjoy a performance of Shakespeare. But I think there's a time and a place for this, where the austerity of a Shakespeare should not get in the way of an audience having fun with it. And I think that's what Eric balanced well was. He respected the text. He didn't bastardize to the point where I'm like, well, this isn't Shakespeare anymore. You're just, basically reskinning something and playing off the name. But he showed reverence to the text. He gave pathos where pathos was needed in the moments where it really had to hit the emotion of the moment. But then he also broke it out and had fun. And that's the thing we got to keep remembering. I mean, that's why I love Much Ado this past season at Stratford, was because it was really funny. They found a way to modernize by bringing in new text that still paid respect to the old text, while also building in the energy and the laughs and letting audiences cheer and have fun with it. And that's what this version does too. So I think that's something every Shakespeare director should remember going forward is Shakespeare is a play. Even in the darkest plays like Titus Andronicus, there is the fly scene where it's meant to be funny. Like even when even when Tom McCannis, what's Tom McCannis? No, sorry, I forget his name now.
Sorry, which one?
In Titus Stratford when they did it last time, which was 2011. But the scene where Titus is going to get his hand chopped off. They brought humor into that, which I know some people like, some people didn't. But it's like, no, do this hand, no, do that hand.
Yeah,
like it's actually a funny scene.
Yeah,
and like there is humor in this piece. Like it's not always meant to be drama. This like it's meant to be joy in Shakespeare, because he wasn't just playing to the king in the court. He was playing to everybody. And a good theater piece has both comedy and darkness. Like I just saw Casey and Diana last weekend. That's a heavy, heavy play that when it goes to the emotional depths it goes to, you do cry. Like Laura Condell saying the one line of "My brother is," and breaking down brought me to tears in that moment in the hospice. But there are other moments where where's the whole Marco Polo thing. Every morning they wake up and you think the one character is not going to say polo at the top of Act 2, but yet there's a joke. Like there is light in every play, and I think when we do Shakespeare and the traditional plays, we've forgotten that. Like even doing Chekhov, there's light in a Chekhov play. It's not all we need to go back to Moscow. Oh wait, no, we don't need to go back to Moscow. We have each other. Play. Like
here's the thing though, like and yes, I 100% agree with you that like finding the lightness, and I think that's what we saw tonight, that like really like put a fine point on this. But I think it's almost deeper than that, because like if we think about the tradition of why, honestly, a big part of the puzzle historically of why Shakespeare is this big juggernaut in theater that is constantly like every actor dreams to play such and such characters and such and such shows. A lot of that comes from like it's sort of started in the 17th century, but really became a big thing in the 18th and early 19th centuries of star celebrity actors would use Shakespeare because they knew that their very elite, intelligent audience knew these plays like the back of their hand, so they could wow them by creating their take on it. And and that's already like, even if they were faithful to the text, although in a lot of cases they weren't, because they all rewrote the text in their own way.
Poor Tybalt.
Poor Tybalt, of course. It's going back to the Nicholas Nickleby scene.
We'll link it up here.
There's all kinds of links. But I guess I think So right off the bat, the fact that these star actors created their own version of it, knowing that the audience would recognize the subtleties and what they were doing differently because they knew it well. Contemporary Shakespeare productions are trying to, on one hand, do that because they're like, this is the canon. People know this. We want to do something different with it, so we'll do it in some way. But on the other hand, there's this more of a diffusion culturally that, but do people know this play? Is Shakespeare as well known now? We're courting a much more intellectually, educationally, socioeconomically diverse audience that they can't trust that people will know it. So there's this weird balancing act of we need to be reverential to the original on one regard because it might be someone's first time. But that shoots you in the foot when you're trying to then do something different with it because you can only be so different in most cases.
I mean, good example is Stratford's Much Ado, where they had the OG text when they wrote 3 new monologues that some people loved, some people hated it. And
those people probably hate women, just saying. The people who hated it. Yeah. Just like that's the only reason you could possibly hate it.
Well, according to Bridget, some of the feedback was that people just felt you don't mess with Shakespearean text. You don't go writing your own.
Because much like Shakespeare, we also hate women. Is again just like the only reason you could like possibly,
I don't know.
Follow the reasoning back.
I don't know. I didn't speak to anybody who didn't like the additional monologues, but it's that thing of where's that balance? And I think Much Ado did a good job, just as Eric did a good job of. Where is that balance of combine the old and the new? I mean, as you said, back in the 1800s, they were reading Shakespeare all the time, or Tybalt, who got the shaft.
But it was only possible because they weren't trying to be anybody's first Romeo and Juliet or Macbeth, or they knew that the elite audience that was going to come see this show knew it well. And I think why I was reluctant to give a plot description of this play is, even if you've never seen Macbeth or never read Macbeth, go see this show. Yeah. It's a great entranceway into the show, and it is going to blow your mind like, this is Shakespeare. Oh my God, I love it. And I would love to see Stratford not do this necessarily, because again, I don't think this is a Stratford show, and I think that's in its favor. But I want to see weird things. I think, Richard II was kind of verging on that this past season at Stratford. I think the 12th Night that we reviewed from, I know, a number of years ago now.
Brian Dennehy.
Yeah, the Brian Dennehy one with, of course, Michael Roth's brilliant music, Des McAnuff
Still
directing.
So great.
Yeah, it's
hold
like
that hold that.
Yeah, hold that piece. Like, it's, I think there's, and even those are like, tame by comparison, certainly compared to what we saw tonight. But, I guess with a subscriber-based audience, you can only go so far, but I would like to see them pushing the envelope of how far they can take these things.
Exactly. And I mean, like, I'm very excited to see how Stratford does Cymbeline this season with Lisa Peacock.
But I also think that because most people do not know Cymbeline very well, I think I would expect there will be a reluctance to go very experimental with it. Although you could argue that when they did Timon of Athens, that it wasn't terribly experimental, but it was a bold stroke to do like a modern dress take on this play that most people do not know. So, I don't know.
Yeah, with Joseph Ziegler.
Yeah, so there's, I don't know. It's an interesting time to be into Shakespeare and see what people are doing with them.
It is. And I mean, that's why I'm like, Eric, do more of these. Like, choose a history play, choose another tragedy, choose a comedy, and just have some fun with it, because he's got a really cool market here of how he can play with this thing. Because as you said, there's enough people who kind of know Shakespeare, but then there also, as you said, this is a great entry point for people who don't know Shakespeare. Because I mean, like, I'm sure he could do a really funny Hamlet if you were to do it this way. Even though I would much rather see him do other Shakespeare plays besides the traditional Hamlet's 12 Nights, things like that. Like, I think some of the more broader, out of the box.
And just because Hamlet's already been parodied to death
so many times,
I would, part of me, I could see the temptation to do it because it's another one that enough people know that you could like really like riff and have fun. But I guess one of the brilliant things about this performance is that he takes it seriously as a Shakespearean actor. I know we've kind of labored that point already, but it's not just a parody. I have seen plenty of jokey Hamlets that are just a parody, and I kind of hats off to him that the secret sauce of this production isn't the thing that the audience reacted to. That so like, haha, funny sound cues, funny puppets. I think that's part of what made this so engaging, more so than if he had just done a straightforward one-man Shakespeare play. But the fact that he didn't just let it devolve into parody, that he does have this genuine affection for doing a damn good Shakespeare show, I think paired with all of those comedy elements is what really made this sing.
Yeah. And it did, and I really respect him having the restraint to not do audience involvement, to not do more complicated magic tricks. Like, don't get me wrong, they were very complicated.
Yeah, of course.
But they did it. But they didn't.
While doing everything else.
But there's other ones where like where they almost stopped the show to do a magic trick. As you said, these ones are seamless. Like, they work. Like, he's worked them into the plot with the witches and everything else, and they just add or naturally into the story. And the fact that he didn't do audience involvement at all and just let himself do his thing. And I mean, like, I guarantee you, if we actually recorded his dialogue and listened to him read the Shakespeare, we could open up the text of Shakespeare and go, "Oh, he is on the iambic pentameter beat. Like, he hasn't lost the way you do the Shakespeare text. The technique is still there, and he's not just willy-nilly out Shakespeare. Like, he is still hitting all the text. So I think that's just a big kudos to him, is that he did so much with this piece, and it's just one of those things of, go out and see it. This is one of those pieces you will not be disappointed in. And I said, it's a fun little hole in the wall thing. Like, my only sad thing is we're heading into spring, and the weather has become so nice that I'm pretty sure he was hoping for more of like a cold February winter weather to fit the atmosphere of this piece versus, spring is busting all over.
We're going to get more cold weather ahead. Like, this is just a bit of a blip in the very warm day we've had. Burnham Wood isn't necessarily climbing up to Dunsinane just yet.
Yes. There we go. And, I mean, Ryan, I don't know if you know this, but fun fact, did you know it was the Force coming to Dunsinane that inspired Tolkien with Lord of the Rings?
I did know that. Yes, that's fun with the Ents.
Yes, correct. That's why the Ents come and storm Isengard, is because he got very upset by watching a traditional Shakespeare production with men with twigs in their hats, and he went, "That's not a forest. Let me write something really good about
you want
that.
The forest to storm the castle? I got you covered."
Yeah, exactly. We'll do it proper.
Yeah,
so,
love that.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, do you have anything else you want to add before we sign off this episode?
I feel like this was a bit of a scrambly all over the map, talking about a whole bunch of shows that aren't even this show and intermingled.
But we always tie it back to Eric and praise Eric, because that's the biggest thing about this, is that he nailed it, killed it. And I said, this would be my favorite Eldritch show. Ryan, you're still working on your list, but you say it's going to be one of your top picks.
And it's definitely, again, it is the best Eldritch show, I think, so far, certainly of the ones we've seen. Whether or not that means it's my favorite is a different story. But yes, shout out to Eric and the whole crew, not just him, because a lot of people work hard on this. Amazing work across the board. This is a new high watermark for the company.
Yeah. Love that. Well, there we go. All right, Ryan. Before we go, where can people find and follow you? Give us that classic Ryan Borochovitz send-off.
Well, no need to find and follow me personally, but if you like me and my theater thoughts, most of them tend to live here on Cup of Hemlock Theatre. We're at COH Theatre on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We're Cup of Hemlock Theatre on YouTube, where you might be watching this. We're Cup of Hemlock Theatre podcast in the podcast places where you might be listening to this. How about you, Mac?
You can follow me. Yeah. You can follow me at Mackenzie Horner on social media platforms. You can follow my musical antics over at Before the Downbeat, a musical podcast. We are now done Gallivant season 1 for Ryan and I, but we are now back. We did it. We're going to do season 2 because that was a lot of fun. We just went through a whole rigmarole of memorial episodes since we lost Norman Jewison, Hinton Battle, and Cheetah Rivera all within a 2-week time span.
It's been a bad month for musical theater.
Yes. But we did nice more episodes for that, and now we've officially announced that my former acting coach and director, Scott Hurst, has now joined the team as our next permanent co-host alongside Maris Line, so they'll be sharing the co-hosting duties. And his episodes, as we are finishing the back end of season 5, will now start coming out. And I will preview here that our first episode will be Candide, the Leonard Bernstein Voltaire piece. It is Voltaire, right? Who did
Yeah.
Yeah, Voltaire. Yeah, Voltaire. So yes, with the singing sheep and the gardens, all that good stuff. And also apparently, a whole bunch of murders and jewels and all types of fun stuff there. We had a good time with that episode.
Nice.
There we go. But yeah, check that on out. That'll be coming out, I think, the week after this episode comes out. So the trailer will drop this Friday when this episode comes out, and then next week we will have the first episode out.
Wonderful.
There we go on that front. And then, other than that, stay tuned for more goodies. We got some fun, more duet reviews coming that we've been invited to. We got some other panels that we have coming up that we're recording that will come out throughout the year. So stay tuned. There's a lot of good stuff coming this year. And Ryan, I think if our math is correct, we may hit our 200th episode this year.
We will this year, unless we get some major production delays. We are on track to probably by September, October, I think is when it's scheduled to happen. And we've already announced when we did our 100th episode what the 200th episode will be. We're going to review the Hamilton Pro Shot on Disney Plus that none of us have seen yet, unless you've watched it since we...
No, I watched it once, way back when it first came out, but then I forgot about it, didn't really stick with me, and then I saw it live, and it's still...
Well, you're already giving a bit of a review right now by saying what your feelings about it were. 2024.
2024, here we go. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you all in the next episode.